What's up, people? Golorami Language is back with some more superstars. We've got Davide from Podcast Italiano here
Hey,
today. What's up, man? How's it going?
it's going very well. Well, how about you?
Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. You know, the guests, they never ask, right? Like, I don't know how many guests you've had on. And you're like, hey, how you
It's
doing? They're like, I'm fine. And then they just move on.
no, I think it's polite to ask. So, how are you,
Yeah.
Will?
I'm good. Thank
How's
you. I'm
life?
good. That's good. You know what? Honestly, and we never talk about my life in like these language podcasts and stuff like that. But it's good. We have the weekend off from football. It's an international break. I'm just relaxing. Gonna eat a steak later. Life
Studying
is
any
good.
languages?
Yes, yes. To get straight on it, you know what? I've been reading a whole lot lately. I'm
Right.
reading. Reading for me is the thing, and is one of the keys to language learning. And I think you and I talked last week, or whenever we were speaking about Matt vs. Japan was on, and you know Stephen Krashen, of course.
Yeah,
Did we talk about
of
that?
course.
Yeah, in the research that's behind all of this stuff, and for people that are trying to learn languages, uh, the trick is for me, if I just to sum up everything that I've ever learned over the last 10, 15 years, if you can't get the language to your subconscious, you will never ever make a push towards fluency, you know. And so if you have to constantly translate words, if you have to do that, and then so the key for people, I think, becomes how do you do that? And I think that reading is, and specifically reading fiction, is what they've found as well. Is one of the keys to do that. But what about you?
For me, what I would do like the thing that I've done the most in all of the languages I've learned is just listening a lot of audio. I have read, obviously, but that's probably not the main thing I've done in all of my languages. Of course, that's something that I have done, especially at the beginning. Yeah, I think it's very useful to read and also to listen to the audio at the same time because it forms a connection between the written word and the spoken word. But once I'm good enough to just go off in the world and just I can understand the audio, the spoken language without having a text. That I think that's when I really start to take off, and my language comprehension starts to take off, and I like to do that. And I listen to a lot of stuff. I'm pretty much all of. I mean, I'm constantly immersed in this sort of multilingual world of spoken audio. So yeah, I do a lot of listening.
Okay. Because, and I should clarify, it's not just reading. Obviously, that's not the only thing that I do. And like you said, you do listening. What they found, and I would agree with this once again, is comprehensible input,
Right.
which I'm sure it's a term that you're aware of.
Yeah,
It's not
of
like
course. Yeah.
you're not listening to some sort of insane physics theory that you don't know any of the scientific words and you can't
Right. No.
it
No.
needs to be very precise, right?
Yeah.
80 to 90%. Or what do you aim for when you go to learn? Like, how do you find your stuff? What do you aim for when you're trying to find something to listen to? I mean, I'm a beginner, I want to learn Italian. You're the guy. What do I do, you know?
I mean, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense when you're starting out. I think it's good to find resources that are for learners. And so something like my podcast or my YouTube channel is aimed at people who are learning the language. So it's kind of an intermediate level, and it provides subtitles, transcripts, and all of that stuff so that you can grow your comprehension skills, and then you can actually at some point just start using authentic content for native speakers. So that's kind of the goal of my project, to kind of bridge that gap between super easy materials and stuff that's made for natives.
So we should rewind, of course. Why don't you explain your entire project, who you are, how you got to this point,
Okay.
and then we'll kick it from there.
Okay, so my name is Davide. I'm from Torino, Italy. I was born here and I still live here. So, okay, I'm gonna talk about how I got into language learning before talking about my project, because of course that's how I like my project kind of originated, because of my love for languages. So I started learning languages when I was, well, actually, the first language was English, obviously, because everybody learns English, almost
Yeah.
all over the world, I would say. But so, yeah, English was my first big love in terms of language learning. And I started when I was in middle school, but then I started really getting into it, I think, when I was in high school. Then, and so I became really passionate about English. And then I think I stumbled upon a video by Luca Lampariello. I think you
Hmm.
probably know him.
For sure.
Um, and, and so this guy really struck me because he would speak, I don't know, 10 languages or something like that. And he was great at all of them, apparently. Not that I could judge, but he sounded great. His English was great. And so he advocated for learning more than just one language if you can, if you want. And he talked about how good it is to learn languages. And so I thought, you know what, I mean, I love English, but maybe I could just go beyond just English. And so I started learning Spanish, and then French, and then Russian, and then I've kind of dabbled in some other languages. I would say that in the past couple of years, my passion for languages kind of decreased a little bit. Um, I haven't really learned any new languages. Um, I mean, to a high level over the past like 3 years or something. But that's also because I focus on my project a lot. And interestingly enough, I've also focused on improving my own Italian, which might sound like an interesting remark, but I think that um, our own native language is something that we can also work on, like any other language. So, but I've kind of dabbled in some Latin even because I've met a guy who goes by the name of Luca Ranieri. I've met him online through his videos, and then we collaborated, and he's
Is this not the? Is this the guy that goes around the Vatican
yes,
speaking
that's
to?
him.
Is that
That's
that guy?
him.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's his
yeah.
name again? He seems
Luke
really cool.
Luke Ranieri, or
Ranieri.
Ranieri if you pronounce it with an Italian accent.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of Latin, which was interesting. That's a wholly different experience. But it's interesting. Like ancient languages are interesting, especially because over the years teaching Italian, I've started to become more and more interested in like the history of Italian, and then that's something that I often talk about on my channel. And so, of course, knowing a little bit of Latin helps you with that. And yeah, so yeah, and my project podcast Italiano, it started in 2016 as a podcast, hence the name podcast Italiano. 1 year after that, I opened the YouTube channel, and yeah, that's been my main the YouTube channel has been my main focus, I would say, in the last 2 years, over the past 2 years. And and I'm still doing the podcast just a little bit. I'm more focused on the YouTube side. And yeah, I've just passed 100,000 subscribers, and I've been
Got your
doing
plaque already?
not yet, but I'll get it
Not yet.
soon, I think. it's it's coming in the mail, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and I've been doing this full time, as my job for about a year and a half at this point, I'd say. So yeah, this is what I'm doing. Also, I've done a little bit of teaching, also, but yeah,
Oh,
I'm
you
doing,
do
yeah, I'm,
tutoring,
yeah,
like
tutoring, yeah,
students. Okay.
yeah, but I'm doing less and less of that, because I want to focus on content creation, um, and my Patreon, which is a big part of how I make a living with this project.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna it's gonna be interesting, in those of you guys who are listening to this or watching this right now, because we're gonna put out the full video. We'll put out chunks of this as well. I mean, a big focus will be on not just people that are interested in learning Italian, but kind of what you've built in this format, because there's so many commonalities between trying to do it. So I have a couple questions. When you were trying to learn all of these languages, one of the big things that a lot of people have, number one, as soon as they want to learn a new language, they get motivated. They get 3 days in, maybe 4 days in, I don't know, a week in, and you hit a wall. everybody who's ever tried to do anything is going to hit a wall at a certain point where progress doesn't come as quick. Uh, what are the biggest commonalities you've seen for people that have actually that you've seen over the, I mean, you said what, maybe 4 or 5 years of people who started out as beginners and now have success in Italian studies, essentially that they can more or less, they're conversationally fluent in the language. Is there anything that you could pick out from the students that have succeeded, uh, as opposed to the ones who just are like, I'm going to learn Italian, and then you talk to them 5 years later and they're like, they're still at point one? What's the difference?
Well, first of all, a lot of motivation. That's key. But then I would say uh, comprehensible input.
Yeah.
That, I mean, like people who know what comprehensible input is, and learn with the so-called natural method, natural approach, whatever you call it.
Hmm.
Just listening
Yeah.
to a lot of stuff, reading a lot, like you said. I mean, those people are going to be much better. Uh, are going to become much better than people who
Sorry
just
to
rely
sorry to
on
interrupt.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, because you said that, and I know, I just want to clarify for people. Yeah, the natural method, the natural approach is the one that we're talking about, which is this comprehensible input type
Right.
thing. So I'm sure in order to separate the other ways that people are learning, it's essentially no grammar at all, a little bit of grammar, or what's the,
Yeah.
that's just,
Well, I
if
think
you
it
could
really
touch on that.
depends. Everybody comes from a different background in terms of what's their native language, which languages they have learned already. So, like for someone who might be a Spanish speaker, it's going to be much easier for them to just understand Italian naturally without any grammar at all. For someone who maybe is a Russian speaker, it might be a little bit harder at first. So, a little bit of grammar might help. I do think that learning the grammar helps a little bit. It shouldn't be your main focus. But then, I mean, it really depends on what you like doing in a language. At the end of the day, you have to have fun. And that's probably, if I had to find one rule, is you have to enjoy the process. If you don't like what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're trying to do something that has worked for someone else. If you don't like the process, then it's not going to work. Like if you don't like doing Anki, doing flashcards, then you should probably not do it. It's not that because it works for some people that it's going to be great for you if you just hate it. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, like, the message that I think we have to kind of push forward is that grammar is not as important and shouldn't be the main focus, um, as it's kind of um, promoted in school. Like we go to school, we only do grammar. That's basically the only thing we work on most of the time. Um, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that grammar is useless. Of course, I think it has its place in language learning, um, but it shouldn't be the main focus. I think then some people work on it more, some people less, some people like it a lot, some people don't. I think grammar is very useful when you want to be accurate in when you're speaking, because I mean certain things you're just gonna get right because not because, as you said, you know the language subconsciously, but other things they're kind of hard to get right just automatically. You know what I mean? Just mm, using your intuition, if that makes sense. So I think it's useful to know the language kind of to do a little bit of explicit learning, if that makes sense, to do a little bit of intentional learning of rules. But yeah, you shouldn't go overboard with that.
So when you were learning, let's say more than one language, and stuff that you learned from Luca, um, maintaining languages is a challenging thing. I mean, for people that are interested in, maybe they're beginners and they're on to their second language, let's say, uh, or they want to learn more than one language. Generally speaking, if I remember right, also I can definitely, I've known about Luca for years now as well. And generally, some of these tremendous polyglots do not recommend learning two languages at once if you're a beginner. And then if you do decide to learn a language, generally speaking, it's as a beginner good to have languages that are incredibly separate. A Slavic language and Chinese, or something that doesn't get crisscrossed. I mean, if you don't speak Spanish and Italian and you decide to study Spanish, you're gonna have a lot of commonalities, a lot of mixing, a lot of words that are sometimes the same, and it kind of gets in your way. So, how did you maintain studying of a language, and how do you maintain any of the languages? I know you said you're not as focused on it, but how do you maintain any of that now?
I mean, I don't really worry about maintaining my languages that much, to be honest. I know that my comprehension is not going away. Like I would say once you get to, let's say, a B1 level in a language, you're not gonna forget. You're not gonna lose that skill. Like once you sort of reach a critical mass of comprehension skills, that's not going away. Um, um it's the speaking that's the problematic thing, because if you don't do any speaking, it's gonna get worse. You're gonna get rusty. But to be honest, I don't really worry about having to maintain my speaking skills. um when I know that I'm going to be using a language, maybe I'm going to travel to a country, I'm just going to do a little bit more speaking. It's going to come back, and I don't worry about it too much. I mean, there are people who are crazy about maintaining all of their languages, especially if they're crazy, like amazing polyglots who speak 15 languages. I know you know a bunch of languages, so probably that's something that's something that you have to that you struggle with, or maybe you have to find a way to maintain all of those languages. But to be honest, I don't really worry about it that much. I think I know uh, I know for a fact that if I'm going to speak for a couple of days, the language is slowly going to come back. And
Yeah, that's so true though. I mean, because you can be what you like you said, rusty speaking, and you're right. Like I have a decent number of languages to maintain, but there is just something about it. Like once you land in the country, or once you start to have those conversations, within a very short period of time, uh, everything starts firing and shooting back to you. So you don't really lose it. That's something that they also don't really explain to you. It's true. If you never use a language and you never hear the language, for sure you will. It will take you a little bit of time, but the amount of time that it takes you, it's not like learning a whole language over again. That's absolutely false. You basically just like you get on the bike and you start riding it and like, I remember how to do this, and it all just kind of comes piling in.
yeah, also the comprehension is not going away unless your comprehension isn't that good. Let's say if you reach an A2 level, you can lose that A2 level. So you kind of need to have a core understanding of the language, if you know what I mean. So you need to be good enough after you sort of have an intermediate level in the language. You're not going to lose your comprehension. Like for instance, I'm not working on my Russian anymore at this point, but I was learning Russian very intensely in the past. I can still understand everything without a problem. It's not like I'm losing my comprehension. The speaking skills, yeah, I'm definitely a little bit more rusty, but I know that if I'm going to speak for a couple of days with Russian speakers, it's going to come back. So
Sure, sure, sure. So, with everything that you've got on Podcast Italiano, and you have the Patreon, what do people get when they do a deep dive? Like, what am I going to get as an Italian speaker? Why this and not something else? For
well, you're gonna get a bonus podcast where I go deep in my explaining certain words or constructions or grammar things that are kind of related to the main content that I'm producing. So it's kind of connected to what I'm already making. You're gonna get the transcripts of the videos with certain words explained and translated to English, which I mean you don't really need if you because you obviously you have the subtitles on the channel, but I go a little bit deeper in the transcripts. So I think it's useful if you want to learn uh, the vocabulary a little bit more intentionally. you're gonna get some live streams. I do some Zoom lessons where I talk about different things, pronunciation. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff there. There's a Telegram group where we chat in Italian. And what else? Yeah, I do a lot of stuff on the
That's
Patreon.
a lot. That's a
Yeah, a
lot. I
lot
mean,
of
yeah, I
work.
mean,
Maybe too much work, to be honest.
you're
uh,
providing too much value. Yeah.
I'm providing too much value. No, I'm making a lot of extra content. I would probably, if I were starting now, I'd probably do a little bit less because it's a lot of work. But still, the patrons like it, I believe.
Yeah, no, no, I definitely. I mean, I've obviously before we even had this. It's funny because I didn't know eh, in my quest for Italian. You're gonna obviously you're gonna run across your podcast. As you said, you're over 100,000 now. Basically, that's the way. Everybody knows that's the way internet and Google works. Once you get over like you said, a critical mass, if you type in "learn Italian," there are a few people you're going to run across. You're up at the top. So I knew who you were years ago, actually, without really knowing who you were, because of how you speak. You speak clear. You know, I've most of my friends that are from southern Italy. I'm always like, can you just slow down and
Yeah,
enunciate, please?
yeah.
Uh,
And I mean, some people might kind of, maybe they listen to me, they think, oh, Italians speak like that. Oh, that's going to be easy. And I know
yeah, yeah.
it's not what you're gonna find in real life, but at the same point, I'm trying to speak in a way that's understandable and that's a good model in terms of accent wise, because as you know there are a million accents in Italian, but like the way I talk is sort of a standard way that it doesn't sound too regional or too.
It's neutral, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty. Yeah, it's neutral. That's what I'm going for.
Have you seen La Suburra, the show?
I haven't seen it. I think I saw one episode, but yeah, I know
Okay,
about it. That's
okay,
in
because in Rome,
Yeah,
obviously,
in Romano. So that's
Romano, yeah, crazy sounding, to someone who could switch. I mean, it takes a definite switch of the ear to get used to stuff like that. And I mean, that's a thing for everybody. And speaking of Russian speakers, a lot of people who learn Russian have that issue as well. It's like a lot of the content producers in the language, they do a great job of speaking slow, speaking clearly. And me having lived in Baku, Azerbaijan, which is a part of the former Soviet Union, uh, that's not what you're going to hear when the taxi driver, you've got this thick accent of another, they speak another language as well on top of it. And so it's all over the place.
Yeah,
I have
but you
a,
have to
I have
start
a,
with something that's easy enough, I think. You can't
that's it,
start
but
with
that's
the
the
taxi
comprehensible part.
driver. Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
You
And
don't get
then
anywhere.
right, and then you can maybe get into native content for native speakers, and then you're going to work on your comprehension skills, and you're going to find that you need to be able to understand the language faster. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I have a wild card question, which is I asked Matt versus Japan his thoughts on meditation and language learning. And I'm curious if you have anything that you use that is maybe not part of the general rhetoric for language learning now, like we just talked about, good listening, um, good books or good content that is of your level. Do you have anything outside of that you use or utilize or think that is good? Are you better on caffeine? Do you study better on caffeine? Do you do you meditate before you do it? Do you visualize? Do you do it before bed in the morning? Any sort of thing that could give someone an edge?
Oh, so you mean like something that's not, typical language learning advice?
Yeah, maybe that's something that you picked up on, or that you used, or that you've heard, maybe haven't tried. I don't know. You're the type of person, somebody who's deep within this world would know if you do have anything.
Right. This is probably a general tip, but I would say sleep is important for learning anything. Uh, for your body and your mind. I think getting enough sleep is a good thing that I would recommend, and it's probably something that we're hearing more about it now, but I think we're probably not like
We're not
giving it the
utilizing
importance
it.
that, yeah, that it should have. So yeah, get more sleep is what I would recommend. I mean, it's for work, for anything, but also for language learning, for anything, any cognitive task. I think getting enough sleep is important, and because like
That's so
I
true.
think a lot of cognitive processes happen while you're sleeping. So
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, those scientists in all these studies, they found that the that memory and what a relationship our memory and solidifying what you studied to good night's sleep is, and a lack of sleep over a consistent lack of sleep won't allow you to do what we just talked about. I mean, it won't matter how much comprehensible input you do if you sleep only 3 or 4 hours a night over the course of 6 weeks. You're just you're drastically handicapping yourself from what you can do. What I thought you were going to say, since we actually had a talk earlier, I thought you were going to go down deep work,
oh,
down
deep
the
work.
idea of phones and
Yeah,
and studying method and
that
stuff
too.
like that,
Yeah.
which I know, yeah, is a whole lot. But how do you do that when you are studying?
A good question. Well, I don't know if I do it, but I know that I should be doing it. Like, well, we all know how phones can be distracting, and that's something that I don't know. I don't know how to cope with. Like the fact that if you're learning on YouTube, you're gonna have a million other videos that you can watch at any time. There's something actually. I think I heard this from Matt versus Japan that you've interviewed. Making an account, a YouTube account just for your language learning. So you're not
Oh,
going to get recommended videos that are
yeah.
in maybe different
Uh,
languages or maybe in your
Puppies
native
and
language.
kittens jumping up and down. So you're like, oh, okay, I'll watch this for a little bit. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Sure, but still, there are so many videos you could be watching, and it's really hard not to get distracted in this distracted world we live in. Um, so I would recommend removing any distractions as much as possible. Maybe silence your phone, put your phone on silence, and what else? I don't know. Try not to have any messaging apps open. That's something that I do for work. If know that I really have to get something done, I'm not gonna have WhatsApp or any messaging apps lying around because I know that's bad for my concentration, and I think that applies to language learning. How do you do it?
Yeah, that's it's a challenge. I mean, just like everyone said. I mean, I don't specifically run our social media for that. It's something that I just I have nothing against it. Obviously, you can use these things for good, right? Just like we said. I mean, you can use them to study, and they can also be distractions at the same time. Uh, but there's just something so satisfying about coming out of a session of an hour or at least 30 minutes where it's deep work, where you actually have done nothing but said, I want to do this. And I set and I will, and then I do it. And with no distraction, like you said, all messaging apps off. My phone is actually always on no disturb. So I always miss calls. And then I just go back to them. I mean, it's very rare in life. It's less than 1% where there's an emergency for you. Uh, so that's a huge part of my language learning. For me, I'm a huge meditator. So I found when with a consistent practice of that my memory retention goes up. Obviously, my concentration goes up, and it's not something that is a. It's not like you. I don't even know how to put this. There's an exponential return. If you were to meditate consistently for 90 days, after another 90 days, you will be exponentially better than you were. Uh, so it's not something that is like, all right, once you've done it, you've got a good set, you're good. It's not like weightlifting. I mean, at a certain point, yeah, you're not going to lift the building. If you keep lifting weights, you're not going to be able to pick up a building. That's not the case with meditation. It doesn't seem like there's an upper limit on our ability to concentrate to, the benefits of it. So that's something that I've found in order to maintain so many languages. The other thing that I do is it has to be incorporated. It's a really hard thing to just start studying Italian, for instance, and then just turn your phones and and your desktop and YouTube all into Italian. You're going to be searching for things. There's some very technical things, and it's annoying at first, right? once you can get to that level, obviously you do need to make a switch. It's just like you said, if you're trying to learn, like you said, in Italian, if you're benefiting your Italian, that makes you a more articulate person. You can speak more clearly. Your vocab in your mother tongue will allow you to expand on the world better, and I think that will also actually help your other languages. I mean, if you can explain more things and you're open to more things, I think that this will allow you to be accepting of new words and pushing more. And so, uh, I also do. I mean, I love to read. Also in English as well. You know, I've been reading a lot of Swedish stuff. I spent a lot of time there, and I'm maintaining that language is pretty cool. And it's very, I don't want to say very easy for anybody that's, but it's easier for a native English speaker to learn Swedish. So
Is it easy to speak Swedish with the people there because everybody knows English super well?
that's a problem. That's a problem. I first played in Denmark. Danish and Swedish, they're not the same. They're obviously the same language family.
Yeah, they're
Danish is
kind of
very,
mutually intelligible, though, it
for
seems.
sure, for sure, for sure. And yeah, they speak such good English. When I got there, all the foreigners on my team, they got them an English tutor, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to learn Danish," and the director was like, "Why? We all speak English." I'm like,
That's kind of
"It would
sad,
be
though.
awesome." I know. He's like, "Why?" So yeah, that's an issue. But
Yeah, no,
in Italy, I
I hate it.
know.
I hate it when people go, "Oh, you shouldn't learn my language. It's
Yeah.
useless. Just speak English, and you're gonna be fine."
What?
First of
No.
all, well, in Italy, you're not. It's not going to be enough. English is not gonna get you that far. I mean, it really depends. Of course, if you want to go to the touristy places like Florence, Venice, okay, you don't need to know any Italian. But really, if you want to live in Italy, you're gonna have to learn Italian. Um,
What's Torino like with that?
with
How's
language
the
with
how's the
English.
English?
It's not that good, I would say. It's not as good as Milan. Milan is much more of an international city, and so they're probably more used to foreigners. A lot of expats. Um, I mean, I would need to ask because, of course, I don't speak English in Torino. But from what I've heard, it's not as good as other cities in Italy. It's not as it's not as touristy as maybe Milan or Florence. The tourism is not as developed here, so it's probably a good place to be to go to in Italy if you want to practice your Italian. Um, it's still a pretty big city. If you like cities, it's going to be great, but it's going to be harder to speak English.
Yeah, and my Italian journey hasn't taken me all over Italy yet, and I have been to Venice for a couple days, and then I was in Trieste, which is not far from Zagreb, which I don't even know how much that. Maybe it's an hour and a half, maybe it's 3 hours. I'm not sure. It's real close. Um, but I would love to do the travel and do the whole thing. Last question on Italian. I mean, we'll make a whole other thing in Italian for people here on the channel. Um, but trying to learn a dialect, I have such a fascination with Italy. And I always ask Italians, what dialect should I learn if I have to learn any dialect? And of course, this is very divisive. Don't learn that. Why would you learn that? No one speaks that. Go learn Sicilian. No, no one speaks that. Don't learn that. What would you say? And what's the dialect there?
Okay, here in Torino.
Yeah.
Okay, so the dialect here. First of all, we need to know how we use the term dialect in Italy because it's not the same as you would use it in English. So dialect really means language. That's the thing. So dialects are not dialects of Italian; they're sister languages, basically. It's just that Italian is the official language, and all of the quote unquote dialects are not official, don't have the same political status. The regional language or dialect, if you will, that we speak here, or I mean that let's say that some people speak here is Torinese, which is a variety of Piemontese or Piedmontese, if you want to say it in English. although it's not really that much. It's not really that spoken um, in Torino anymore. It used to be a lot more common, but then after the 60s, we got a lot of immigration from other parts of the country, and so we kind of like many people don't speak it anymore because most people have mixed families, and so the lingua franca sort of became Italian, and that happened in Milan as well. Very few people in Milan speak Milanese. Yeah, so yeah, and I don't speak the regional language. I don't speak
You don't say okay.
Torinese
So
because
Torinese is what you said it was
Yeah,
though.
Torinese, which is a type of Piemontese,
Yeah,
because
but
of
type of
course
Piemontese.
there are differences between all
Crazy.
the different, you could call them dialects of the regional language, right? So the varieties of the regional language. So if you have Napoletano, you're gonna have lots of different varieties of Napoletano. Same with Torinese and Milanese, and because my parents don't speak it, they understand it, but their parents, my grandparents, didn't want my parents to speak it because they had this very negative attitude towards the dialetto. They thought it was not the language of the future, so they didn't uh, pass it down. They encouraged my parents to only speak English, and my parents still had occasions to hear Piemontese, but they never spoke it. They never spoke it, and so and obviously I'm one step down in the family tree, and I don't, like, I kind of understand it a little bit, but not that much, and I just know a couple of phrases here and there, and that's really sad. That's really a shame because it's kind of something that we lost. It's cultural. I don't know. It's part of the culture, and as a language lover, I'm sad to not have it. But it's at the same time, it's kind of hard to learn it because like there, sure, you could go to people and pick it up that way, but first of all, who speaks it? Here in Torino, it's not that spoken, so you would need to go to the countryside maybe, or to other parts of the region, and then you would need to find people who are willing to speak it to you. But then it's kind of weird because you both speak Italian. That's the
Italian.
thing. Everybody speaks Italian. There are
Yeah.
almost no exclusive dialetto speaker. So yeah, I haven't learned it. Maybe if I find a way in the future, or if I find someone needs to make content, that's what I keep repeating. Um, if I were to learn a dialetto, I'm saying dialetto because dialect is kind of misleading. I'm meaning dialect in the Italian sense, I would probably go for Napoletano because there are a lot of TV shows, a lot of famous TV shows. You have Gomorra, you have L'Amica Geniale, or My Brilliant Friend in English. There's a lot of culture, a lot of music, a lot of even literature in Napoletano. It's probably one of the regional languages with the most sort of mm, culture, and
Really? And
yeah,
not
and
not Sicilian,
yeah, no,
not
Sicilian too. I would say
oh,
Napoletano, Neapolitan, Sicilian, Veneziano, or was one of the most important dialects back in the day. Um, then you have Romano, which is uh, technically speaking, Romano. You mentioned Suburra, right? That's Romano, Romanesco. That's kind of the same thing. Um, that's not really a dialetto. It's not really a separate language. Historically speaking, it is a dialect in the English sense of the word because it's a variety of Italian because it stems from Tuscan, or from Florentine. So it's a variety of the Florentine dialect, and that's why it's so similar to Italian. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for anybody learning the language, but the grammar, the words are really really similar. Like, there are a couple of differences, but any Italian can understand Romano without exception. Also because we're exposed to it, but we don't we have no problem understanding it. But like for me, it's going to be very hard to understand I don't know, Pugliese or Siciliano, Napoletano. Like, uh, like of course I can get better at it if I watch a TV show like L'Amica Geniale. Then I start getting better at it. But it's a different
It's
language.
tough.
It's like a foreign
Yeah,
language.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. Well, you have not solved my dialetto problem there.
What was the problem? Which
Which
one?
one? Which
I would
one?
go for
Your
Napoletano,
Napolitano.
personally
Okay.
speaking. But do you have any, I don't know, any interest or fascination towards a city in Italy?
No, no, that's the problem, and also the beauty of my journey here is because I like I said, I've only really spent 3 4 days in Italy at best, and rather rushed to be honest. I have not explored the country. I couldn't tell you what I love and why I love the a city or a region or a place. I just have a fascination with the obviously the history of Italy is great. And there's hardly a human on earth that isn't fascinated with Italy's history, but the culture and the language, and obviously being a footballer and all that stuff. So I'm fairly exposed to Italy and from a young age, and I don't know. I don't know. I think that's going to change when I go. You know,
I mean, there are certain parts of Italy where dialetti are still used a lot. Like as I was saying, I was talking about Napoletano. Well, Naples is a place where you're gonna hear the dialect all the time,
all the time.
all the time. Well, if you're going
It's
to
crazy.
Milan or Torino, you're basically never going to hear it. So there's a big difference in terms of usage depending on where you go. I would say learn Italian first. Then if you go to a specific city, especially a city where the dialetto is used a lot, then it makes sense to kind of pick it up if you can and try to find some resources. Although that's kind of the hard part.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Oh
there
God.
are there aren't that many YouTube channels or podcasts, or actually there are very very few. And um, and I keep saying, if you speak a dialetto, an Italian dialect, uh, open a YouTube channel, start a YouTube channel, make content.
Oh wow. You'll
Um,
own the language there essentially on YouTube. There's just really not enough
yeah, and
resources available.
sure, but I don't know. I guess people don't really find a reason or don't have the incentive, maybe the economics incentive to do
Maybe.
it.
I think you know what I think. I think people don't know that the fans are there because I think anytime I've ever seen anything from any sort of dialect in Italian, the comment section is filled also with other Italians going, "This is really cool. Like, I wish I learned this. I wish I did this." So there's also this appreciation for keeping it up, like you said. Like,
Right.
you would love if there was
Sure.
Piemontese or something. I mean, you maybe
Yeah, I would.
you you would appreciate it. So I think it's an interesting thing, and obviously there's with there being less people to do it, that means there's less able people who you got to get podcast and this and having the time and stuff. So it's a bit difficult in that sense. But I wanted to close out. I have a question here on the future as the last question. Where are we headed with Podcast Italiano? 5 years down the road, what is the hope and goal? Are you going to be with Mark Zuckerberg in the metaverse, teaching lessons in there? Do you have plans for that? Or
I don't
like,
know how
where are
that's
you
gonna
going?
work.
Neither do I, but
I would like to make some courses. That's something that I haven't done yet, and that seems like something that makes sense as the next step. I would like to keep making better content, grow my channel, grow my podcast, and possibly build a team, delegate some of my work because I'm doing too much work right now. I've started to delegate, but it's something that I need to do more of. And yeah, keep growing. Basically, that's the idea. To be honest, I don't know. What I would like to ask you is, where do you think is language learning headed? Like in 10 years, like this whole explosion of artificial intelligence and all this. That's something that I keep wondering. Like, are we still going to learn languages in 15 years from now?
I think
Um,
that. Yeah, that's a
Some
woman.
people
What a great
probably
question.
will, but, like,
Yes.
is
How
everybody
much?
like yeah,
Mm,
how many
no.
people are
No, because I mean, yeah, if you look, we all as humans, we follow the path of least resistance as a culture, as a not everybody, like we said, but as a general society, we will do so. And if we have things, if we are plugged in to Elon Musk's Neuralink, or if we have glasses on that can translate everything, or if our headphones are always plugged into the internet and they just automatically translate any language we want into anything, then no, it's just flat out no, we are not going to continue. Some people will continue to do so, just in the same sense that eventually self-driving cars, whether it's 100 years, 50 years, you know, people are going to they're going to lose the ability to drive a car. Some people will do so that are in the older generations because it's fun, but it's gone. It's gone. So it is a bit interesting to think that that's going. I mean, a lot of the obviously technology is great, but a lot of the things that worry me about technology are our reliance on it and how we devalue. Like we can't remember phone numbers anymore. Uh, we can't remember directions anymore. We like those are useful parts of the brain. I mean, they did studies on taxi drivers, and their hippocampus, which is the part of your brain that deals with spatial learning and stuff like that, is engorged essentially. It's huge. It's getting a workout because they have to understand these things, and they linked having weakened hippocampus to Alzheimer's, which is going up drastically in our society. And so it makes me wonder, are we just weakening our brains and our ability to function in concentration so much that you're just bypassing all of these strengths that we have? That would be my biggest worry for us as a society. Yes, there's going to be positives where we all can all understand each other. So therefore,
sure, obviously, yeah.
but there's always a give and take. Um, and I don't think it's going to happen as quick as we think, as far as the language learning thing, because you've got to imagine these first world countries. Maybe San Francisco is a place where you can use it all, but there's no way that you're going to be able to go to, say, where my dad is from in Nigeria, and think that everybody's going to have
Some sort
a
of
language
device,
learning
yeah.
device. It's just not
Right,
viable. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Are you of the same nature, or what do you think? You think it's happening?
I don't know, because some of this technology already exists, and, like, voice recognition and, like, machine translation and voice, whatever it's called, synthesis, like making a robot voice sound natural. All of these technologies already exist. If they're put together, you could have a machine or a device that understands what you're saying to me, translate it back to Italian, and play it back to me in Italian, and then I could speak to you, and the chain would transfer the message back to you in Italian. So something like that already exists. I know there are some apps that do it, and I think with Google you can sort of um, have the assistant sort of interpret between you and another person. So it's kind of here already, but of course we don't have any devices that we can install in our brains, or Neuralink or whatever it's called, yet. But I don't know. 10 years from now, I mean, I wonder if it's going to be like so much easier, and so easy to communicate with people who speak different languages, that we're just not going to bother learning languages anymore. Like if the people who have an interest now are still going to bother in 10 years, because learning a language is hard. It's not easy, uh, and of course you get a lot out of it, but what like, are we still going to go through the effort of learning a language and get good at it? That's what I'm scared of, because I mean, of course, that's the job I have right now. I'm making content for people who want to learn Italian. So I don't know if the passion for the Italian culture is going to be enough of a motor for people to want to learn Italian, even if there's a technology that makes it basically unnecessary.
Obsolete. Yeah,
Obsolete. Yeah.
I it does. It kind of reminds you of, yeah, like you said, it's so much work. It's kind of like the horse in the car. It's like, all right, do we really want to still carry things in a horse and wagon? or do you just want to take this semi truck and move it all the way across the country? We're going to do that. And there are, it's very similar to that. I mean, there are still people that ride horses, right? There are still
Right.
people that
Sure, of course.
know how to ride them and learn and probably
And they
enjoy
have
it to a
fun.
certain.
And that's the
Yeah,
thing, that's the thing
yeah.
that I'm hoping it's going to happen, that, since it's fun, and most people learn Italian not because of practical reasons, like very few people learn Italian because they want to get a job in Italy. Like most people either have a family, like they have Italian ancestors, or they have an interest towards the country and the culture. And so since Italian is a language you love because you're passionate about something related to Italy, maybe that's, something that people are still it's going to be a reason to learn Italian even if we have the technology. But I don't know, maybe I'm just delusional and
Yeah,
people are not.
yeah. You've romanticized the idea. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Obviously, the way we're living it now, and I mean, maybe this is going to sound like an antiquated. You guys would just go ahead in the comment section if you're watching this in the metaverse in the year 2040. If we sound
Right,
like
let us
idiots
know.
now,
Let us know.
yeah, let us
But would
know.
you would you keep learning languages if there's a device?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I won't stop. The device will come and I will end up using it as a way to further my language study. I'll have some time on it so I can try and figure out if there's a way I can utilize it for comprehensible input, like you said, like kind of turn it on and off. And oh, I didn't get that second. I'm going to turn it on. Like that would be kind of cool. Like say what you said again. I didn't quite catch that, and I turn it on. Oh, I got that, and then I'll turn it off and say it again, and then I'll have it. Something like that, maybe I would utilize, but that becomes on me. That's kind of my drive to learn and this athletic, competitive, like cool. Let me learn
You
something
know
new.
what might happen? Like if everybody uses this sort of device, hypothetical device, um, if it becomes so normal that it's like something everybody does, it's culturally the norm to use this device in order to speak to people who speak a different language. Then if you don't use it, and the
You
result
become
is
a
that,
badass.
like, it's, yeah, exactly, because it's going to be like the result is going to be worse, probably. Like the your output in the target language is going to be is not going to be as good as the language coming through the automatic translation. So people are going to be, why do you need to do this? Why don't you do like everybody else? Like I don't have time for this. I don't have time. So I don't know. I wonder if this is ever going to happen. But like, because now like people really appreciate the fact that you're going through the uh, at least most people appreciate the fact that you're going through the effort to learn the language. And but if there ever comes a time where uh you know that effort is basically useless, I don't know if that attitude, maybe that attitude is going to change. Maybe people will will think that's basically unnecessary, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think also the thing, yeah, the other thing that we haven't necessarily touched on there is that this idea. There's always been an idea for this one common language, and there's also a search within linguistics to find that proto human language. Was there ever a common, just a common source of sounds that all humans kind of, spoke at a certain time? And are we headed back there? Is this our way of heading back there? I mean, if we all have a chip on, it doesn't really matter. I mean, what? How do you learn your mother tongue? If you're, it just seems like we're getting to a place where things are going to get mixed and matched, and also, gosh, I mean, imagine being a person who's always used to having this device on, just going out into the world and not even knowing if it's always getting translated into English. And someone takes your device off, and you start hearing this person going, "Ja, ich bin eigentlich aus der," and you're going, "What
Yeah.
is this? You sound like a monster." You know,
Yeah, what's going
uh,
on?
it's like a
Yeah.
sci-fi type of thing. If it shuts down or the internet shuts down, like, what do you do? We can't speak the UN, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
I wanted to ask you, so you've obviously lived in many different countries, and you've played in lots of places. and you've always learned the local language, right? But do you think you would have been able to get by with just English,
Oh.
or like, do you think it would have been possible to?
That's a good
So
so
you lived in Azerbaijan and
Azerbaijan, no chance. I mean,
no chance.
no chance if you wanted to make friends, go outside and do anything at all. No, absolutely not. English is just not spoken. They're a former Soviet Union. The taxi drivers, they speak Russian, and the older generation speaks Russian. The younger generation also speak Russian, even if they don't speak it excellent. So English was not the second language for people there. You need to learn either Azerbaijani, which is related to Turkish, or Russian. The same goes. The same more or less goes for here. If you want to be truly in the culture, everybody speaks pretty good English here in the capital of Croatia, obviously in Zagreb. But when I played in Finland, I decided not to learn Finnish. I decided I wanted to take a break. A, because I didn't have a true fascination with the language. B, it opened up a simple opportunity for me to strengthen a bunch of other languages by opening up a whole bunch of time. I lived there for 2 years. It's like, great. Oh my God, I don't have to learn something new. Let me just do this. And that was cool and a nice break. But for Italian, German, and one other language I'm forgetting, I didn't spend any time there. Like, I learned it remotely. It was a decision on my part. And so the great myth of thinking you have to be there to learn it is, of course, not true. And you won't also just move to a country and just automatically learn the language without any effort. You can spend all your time speaking English and therefore never expose yourself, because you have to be willing to be a little dumb for a second in order to to learn a language. You have to sound stupid and not understand and listen to childlike talk for at least a week or two, before you can formulate a sentence. And if you're not willing to do that, it doesn't matter how long you stay in Italy. You'll learn, oh, pane, okay, and buongiorno. That's about it. That's the extent of your, exposure to the language. So yeah, it's quite a journey, but it all came down to pure intrinsic motivation for me, and continuing. And then when I decide what I'm going to do with these Asian languages, I have a lot more left to do. I'm one of those crazy people that enjoys, uh, starting the journey, getting it to a point where it's good, taking my head off it for a second, then coming back and building that block even further. And I'll just continue to do that even when I have my Neuralink in my head.
Yeah. Were you the only one learning languages
Oh
in all of
God,
your
yes, yes,
teams?
yes,
You're probably
yes,
the
yes.
crazy guy learning the
I'm the
local language.
exactly. I'm the
But that's
crazy guy that
awesome,
reads
though.
the books. Yeah,
You're probably the most multilingual football or soccer player in the world, right?
there's a few guys, because it's an international sport. But yes, as far as scope, from the Slavic languages, all the way to the Scandinavian, yeah, I would say I put myself up there, because most guys, they come in, they speak English already.
Yeah.
They don't care.
I mean,
Yeah, they
there
can
are
still
some
speak
players
well.
who played in Italy and who are pretty good. Like, I don't
What do
know.
you think of
I
Ibras?
think,
Ibrahimovic. His Italian
yeah,
is pretty good.
he's pretty good. Yeah, no,
Right.
he's pretty
Yeah.
good. Also, I was
Yeah.
thinking of Evra.
Oh,
The
Patrice
Turk.
Evra? How
Yeah,
did he
I think he
how's
spoke a
his?
bunch of language. No, he
Oh,
speaks pretty
yeah.
well. He still speaks it on his social media. He
Okay.
has an attachment to Italy and to Juventus, and
Nice.
so he sometimes
That's a
he's
cool guy.
they invite him as a sport journalist, and
Yeah, as an
his Italian is
analyst.
pretty good. I mean,
Okay.
obviously he's French, so he has an
Sure.
advantage, but I think he's pretty good in terms of languages.
Yeah. Yeah, his English is really good too. Oh, there's a guy, Clarence Seedorf. You know
Oh
Seedorf?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Dutch, English. We played against him because we played against Milan, and played against him. So I talked to him after the game, and real nice guy. And yeah, Dutch, Italian, Spanish. Obviously, he played. I think his Portuguese is already played in Brazil. So he's one of those multilingual guys. There's a few. Peter Cech. the goalkeeper from Chelsea, is also supposedly a super brainiac guy. Lukaku.
The Slavs are amazing.
Yeah.
Like one of the best, some of the best um, speakers of Italian, like football
Okay.
players who speak Italian are Slavs. Like the current goalkeeper of Juventus. I'm a Juventus fan. Chesney, or I think it's
Yeah.
pronounced Chaunsney,
Chowsney.
if I'm
Chowsney.
Polish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Chaunsney.
Yeah.
His
Yeah. Yeah.
Italian is amazing. It's unbelievable
Really?
how good it is. Yeah,
Wow.
his accent
Wow.
is crazy good. You almost can't tell that he's Italian. Like you
Wow.
really,
Wow. Wow.
like
Wow.
it's incredibly good. And you also have Nedved, who's now is a
Oh,
manager
Pavel
for
Nedved is
Juventus.
he's
He's
awesome. He's
also,
really good.
I mean, he's lived in Italy for a long time at this point, but he was good
Yeah.
like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
really good. Like the
Yeah. Yeah.
Slavs, for some reason, like maybe the phonology of their languages, maybe
Huh.
I don't know what it is, but they're always so good.
That's
They
crazy.
pick up Italian so fast.
Wow.
And then on the other hand, you have someone like Cristiano who just
How
didn't
was that?
bother learning Italian.
No,
No, it was
he did
terrible. He
really not.
never learned the language. He
No.
there was a meme going around. He did a sponsorship for some sort of private university, and then at the ad, he would say he what they wanted him to say was "Ti aspetto." I'm waiting for you. And he managed to say "Ti aspetto." And everybody made fun of him because like
Oh,
you had one line or two
yeah.
lines in Italian and
Yeah, yeah. You couldn't get this.
you
Yeah,
butchered
yeah.
it like "Ti
Oh,
aspetto."
dude.
Yeah, and
That's
he never
hilarious.
learned Italian. Like he would always speak Spanish or yeah, Spanish in the
Spanish.
interviews.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
It
Did he do
didn't.
that mix thing that they do? I don't know if you've ever seen Guardiola or Ibrahimovic. When Ibrahimovic he was transferred to Barcelona, and he's giving an interview, and they'll speak to him in Spanish, and it's this just giant mix
Sure.
of Italian
Right.
English type, like, because you're more or less, you can understand, right? If you speak enough Spanish or Italian, you more or less get it. But the bene and bueno is getting mixed and matched, and it's just it's funny to hear
No,
how they haven't got it.
he just spoke Spanish. He just spoke Spanish with a slight
Okay.
Portuguese accent, but never learned Italian.
Okay.
And that's something that many Spanish speakers do too. Like the motto of the team, or not the motto, like what you say to as a fan is "Forza Juve," right?
Yeah.
He would say
Yeah.
"Forza Juve" or "Juve" or something like that, which sounds so ridiculous as
Still,
an
why?
Italian. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and again, some Spanish speakers like struggle with like especially Argentinians. They would probably change
Uh-huh.
the y for a sh sound,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah,
you
yeah, of
know they
course.
say
Like their accent.
sho
Mhm.
soy show out, and so for them it would be natural to say chuve, but
Chuve,
for him, I don't know if
where that's
it's
coming
something
from.
that they have in Portuguese, but yeah, it's ridiculous. Forza Juve or Juve. I mean,
I didn't know that because there are these funny things that go across the entire internet where they will be like, and Cristiano Ronaldo, and he already speaks Italian, and he'll be like, "Buongiorno, tutto bene, sì, grazie," and that's it. And they'll just be like, "He is crazy," because we attribute obviously an amazing talent on the football field. We obviously give you superhero status in virtually everything you do. We do it with movie stars. We do it with anybody. And there's a video of Melania Trump who is Slovenian, but you can't ever you can't find any interviews of her speaking in Slovenian, and you also can't find any interviews of her speaking in any of the other languages that she says. Which Italian, because she's a model, Italian and French. She spent time in, well, obviously, Paris and Milan. German, supposedly. English. Her English is obviously very thick with an accent, but she clearly speaks English. And it's just so funny to see these videos that they put on CNN, millions of views, and it's like Melania Trump uh, you know, uh, uh, welcomes Italian children. And she walked in, and there was a guy who actually breaks down the entire video. And she walks in and she says, "Come stai?" To a group. And then he breaks down. He's going, "No, the come stai would be for one person, come state, for multiple people, and it's like, this is a basic thing in Italian. If you speak Italian, you would know this on day 2 of your class. But it's funny to see us attribute that. I like watching those. There are some celebrities and people who speak excellent at that. in their second languages, and others where they just go muy bien, and we're like, oh my god, oh
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and they end up in a YouTube video.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
celebrity X speaks 7 languages incredibly well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we love that. I don't know what that is about us, but okay. Anyway, this
Shakira
has been
apparently is pretty good.
oh,
This
Shakira's actually good though, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah.
From what I understand,
Yeah,
she's
no, she's
actually
good, she's good. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She speaks
Yeah.
Brazilian Portuguese, she speaks Italian, I think. Well, her English is
Spanish,
amazing. I mean, she
obviously.
probably
English
works
is great.
in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's pretty good. She's a she's the real deal in terms of celebrities doing languages.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. I won't keep it. We're over an hour in. This has been actually really really interesting. There's gonna be some great clips and stuff like this for us to put out there.
Great. You wanted to do half an hour. I think we did
Yeah,
twice
we
as
went
much,
out. Yeah,
but I had fun.
it's perfect. Yeah, no, it's freaking great because I love the fact that we're gonna have all this stuff to clip and cut down.
Cool.
So for everybody, guys, links and stuff to the podcast and Patreon and everything is going to be either in the show notes if you're just listening to this, or in the description box, obviously right down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, and anywhere else they should check stuff out that we may not.
My Instagram, maybe.
Instagram. All
Yeah,
right. We'll throw that in
cool.
there. We'll throw that in there as well. All right, man. Thanks. We'll do
Thank
something in
you.
Italian and the other languages some other time. It'll be good to put up as well.